whenever you're dealing with what a company is worth, the number one answer to that, which is always correct, is it's worth. All right, I have a couple business questions in here. So if you guys aren't interested in business in any way whatsoever, you can just go ahead and click off of this one. There's a couple. One of them's asking, how are you going to stay competitive, with companies like, and there's a company named, but it's not just that company. It's it's a big industry, man. There's a lot of other companies. And the last time I answered this, it was in the rapid fire, and I put out how are they going to stay competitive with us? Each company in this industry has different business models. Some companies try to copy other companies' business models, but for the most part, over a period of time, even those people that try to copy somebody else's business model, usually if you try to copy somebody else's business model, you're going to go out of business pretty quick, because you're going to have to form your own identity. You're going to have to form your own culture, and brand. And you're not going to do that following somebody else's model. It's just not going to happen. Now, a lot of times people will start following somebody else's model, then that kind of merges and grows into their own. And then that will, last for longer, extended period of time. I mean, nobody's guaranteed, success forever. So when I say, how are they going to stay competitive with us is, we are an education company that happens to sell, the highest quality equipment, accessories, goods, and services to lifters who, our target market is lifters who place training as one of the highest priorities in their life. So as long as we keep putting out content for free, like we do now, we're going to have people that are going to support us, because it's through that content or through those products that we sell that allow this content to be given out for free. So it's one hand kind of feeding the other, and that's the business model that we have. That's the philosophy of the live, learn, pass on. That's why this company was founded. The company wasn't founded to compete with company A, B, C, D, E. I don't give a shit about any of that. What I want to do is to educate and help people to be able to become better, break PRs, and learn that those same skills that they have in the gym can be applied to their own life or their business, and become better there as well. That's what drives me. That's why I do this. Now, the means to be able to put that education out, to be able to help people, is obviously through product. I don't want to have a pay site. I refuse to have a pay site. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with pay sites. That's just not me. I owe way too many fucking people who have helped me get to where I am, training wise, to have a fucking pay site or to charge people, for information to help them get better. That's, to me, it goes so against my own personal values. It's not even conceivable to be able to do that. But at some point, you still have bills to be able to have to pay to be able to put the content out. Now, with that in mind, I don't want to sell cheap shit. I grew up in a household where my parents sold appliances, and they sold the best appliances you could buy. My father refused to sell low quality appliances. That's how I was raised. So that's how I approach the equipment market and the products that we bring in from that standpoint. So while it may look to some like there's two different sectors here, it is the hand feeding the hand, and that's what we're interested in, is that. I'm not interested in, competing with so-and-so and so-and-so. If we are to hit our demise, the way I honestly feel, that what's going to bring us down more than anything else is if our content all sucks and we're not real. and we're not honest, and we start putting out a bunch of bullshit, and it's not helping people get better. If we stop doing that, we're fucking dead. We are dead way before anybody else could put us out. So that's the difference, is it's a different business model. So how are they going to compete with that? With a different business model, their business model, which is fine, that's theirs, but it's not mine. I can't get passionate just about selling shit. Now I don't get me wrong. I love, having a gym full of 150 different bars and all. I love training shit. I love that. I love different stuff and, playing around, tinkering around with different ideas to put this together with this and to see how it works and see how that, I love all that, but the driving fact of all of it is it's helping get people and helping make people better, bottom line. The other question that came in was, how much is Elite FTS worth? Well, the first thing with that is, and this is going to be more helpful to people who may have businesses than my first answer. The first answer is still pretty helpful, and that's find your own culture, find your own brand, and find what drives you and what your passion is, and then learn how to try to lead and to spread that onto others and find a way to get people on board that share the same vision. The second part is with the how much is the company worth? I am a big, well, first off, how much, we were interrupted there, so that's why the pause. Plus I had to burp a couple times, so it was good timing. Whenever you're dealing with what a company is worth, the number one answer to that, which is always correct, is it's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay for it. That's the bottom line. It doesn't matter anything else except what somebody else is willing to pay for it. Now, I am a proponent of different strategic indicators. And when I first started the business, I had no idea what I was doing. I was lucky to use QuickBooks, so that helped, but I had my own Excel sheet which contained items that I call strategic indicators because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just knew where I wanted to go and what indicators needed to be followed to be able to keep the doors open and to be able to get site traffic and all those other things. Now, years later, one of the indicators that I use is a professional valuation that we'll do on a yearly basis, and sometimes more so. Sometimes I just had one done after the first 3 quarters. And it's the more frequent, if we're gonna have it done more frequently, then it's because, we have made a significant investment into the company and we wanna see how that investment is impacting the growth of the company and when that investment will impact the growth of the company. Because some investments you make in the company or in your own business, you may not see for a year, 2 years. Some real long-term ones you may not even see for 5. But you have to have some way to understand and to know, is it moving in the right direction? Is the needle moving in the right direction? And when you have a strong valuation done, and I'm not talking a valuation where somebody just takes your total sales or your total profits times 5. That's bullshit. And I'm not talking about a valuation that an accountant would be able to provide you with. An accountant can provide you with what's currently going on right now, in your business, which is another very important aspect. I'm not discounting that in any way. It's an extremely important aspect. Evaluation are going to be guys that are more schooled in finance that can kind of look at what you're doing, look at the trends, look at the analytics, and to be able to see, how this is going to impact, what direction it's going to go, and where, like I said before, where it's going to go, and if it is going that way or not, and what to do if it's not going that way, and when is the right time to make that investment, when is the time to not make that investment, those type of things. You need to know what the big picture is. And if you have a business, you need to consciously always know what your valuation is, or what the worth is. And there is a number that they will come up with if you have a valuation done. And it's a range, but it's still, like I said, it's still going to boil down to whatever somebody's going to be willing to pay for it. There's a lot of factors that go into the valuation, which I am not smart enough to be able to figure all those factors out. I'm smart enough to know, or smart enough to have somebody else do it for me, and then to sit down and discuss all those factors to be able to see if things are where they're supposed to be and what needs to be done. The other thing that the financial person who would do the valuation can bring to the table is a fresh set of eyes that may not know your industry, where there could be a lot of things that you're thinking, hey, yeah, we really need to do this, or we should do this, or we should look into this. And then they come out and say, look, in this, based upon what I'm seeing as a bean counter, or whatever you want to call them, this is really where you need to focus. And then you sit back, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. And then you absorb it and you're like, he's 100% right. That's where things need to be focused. So that is something that I highly, highly recommend, because you will get more data, strategic data, to be able to grow your business, move the needle in the right direction, if you have all the numbers associated with a solid valuation. I will post, some notes after this, the more financial notes, in regards to what you should kind of be looking for and the goals of evaluation from the financial advisor that I use. I'm speaking just as, the owner, CEO / meathead, on what the actual value of it's been for me. And that's having a fresh set of eyes, knowing exactly what's going on with the company, and making sure when you make decisions, we all go through a learning phase, just as we do with training. When you start training, you go in the gym, you do a bunch of stupid shit. Then after a while, you start making some gains. And after a while, you're like, man, I should probably start getting serious about this and figure out what the fuck's really going on. When you get to that point where you want to try to figure out what things, what's going on and how to get better, that's when you need to start looking at everything with a critical eye and asking the question, are you doing things with the best practices? And by best practices, I mean, this is a very simple example. Are you throwing your receipts in a shoebox and handing them to the accountant at the end of the year? That's not a good practice. Best practices, from that general standpoint, but best practices from all the way through the business, from the messaging all the way down to, are your HR templates in place? Are you compliant with everything you should be compliant with? And every industry is different. Are all these things in place? Because even if your goal is not to sell the business, it's still helpful to try to build the business in such a way that it would be sold at some day or at some time. And the reason for that falls back onto best practices. Because if you're to take your business and say, hey, I'm done, I want to retire, I want to leave, I'm just sick of this shit, or whatever it is, I want to sell it. And if you go to sell it and you happen to find somebody that's going to be a buyer, that buyer is going to want to buy your business for the lowest price possible. You're going to want to sell it for the highest price possible. So there you go. Everything that you have in your company strategically and system-wise that isn't being done with the best practices, you're going to take a ding on it. So if your valuation says you're worth all right, let's just 10 million. All right, but you don't have any position statements, you don't have supplier contracts, you don't have agreements with, you know, your trainers as far as clauses on them leaving and, you know, how far away they taking clients, you know, stuff like that. If you don't have all these things in place, you just lost. If it's 10 million and you're, you know, a sport training, personal training business, but you have no position contracts with your employees, and you have no agreement with them in regards to stealing and taking clients when they leave, your 10 million just dropped to about 7 million. Because you don't have the best practices in place. That's why you need to always look at it from that standpoint, because that's a big chunk to take for something that might have taken you, you know, a few months to redo. But I'll guarantee with most businesses, their practices, if they're a small business, you know, that grew, or a business, you know, like Elite FTS that grew out of a bedroom, the practices are all fucked up, you know, until you get to a certain point in time, 3 years, 5 years, you know, whenever you start to realize needs to run better, then you need to start going back and redoing all of those, and then making sure they're current, making sure they're up to date. So that's the takeaway from that standpoint, is to make sure you're implementing the best practices, and that can also be, that's also where that valuation can come in, and where the financial advisor can come in. And I can keep going on this forever. You know, what is there a succession plan? Because if not, that's going to impact as well. So the question, you know, what is it worth, falls back onto whatever somebody's willing to pay. But I'll also fall back on it and say, we work really damn hard and have been working really damn hard for many years on implementing the best practices. So we'll just leave it with that.